Ladies and gentlemen, we are now boarding Group A. Please have your boarding passes ready to scan. If your phone is cracked, old, or was chewed up by your Chihuahua travel companion, please refrain from holding up the line. And instead, simply go to Verizon and trade in any phone in any condition from one of their top brands for the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Plus with Galaxy AI on Unlimited Ultimate and a watch or tab. Also, on them.
Service plan required for watch or tab. Trade-in and additional terms apply. See Verizon.com for details.
Welcome to the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Trish.
And this is our podcast. We talk about wrestling news and various topics from different promotions, primarily AEW, but also New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, and topics from around the wrestling world. Whatever we find interesting, and we hope you will too. We are a proud member of the Social Suplex Podcast Network, and you can find our content on our podcast feed, the Social Suplex Podcast feed, as well as on Twitter, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. We also have a store at Chopped Tees, so if you would like to support us or just own a really cool quality piece of clothing, please take a look at chopped-tees.com/collections/Social Suplex Network. Trish and I also did an extra show this week. Mr. Warren Hayes was kind enough to have us as guests on his podcast, where we had an in-depth discussion about the 4 pillars of AEW, their past, present, and future. It was a really interesting conversation that we enjoyed very much. So please feel free to search for the Mr. Warren Hayes Show wherever you get your podcasts, and also on YouTube. And his show on the 4 pillars does feature Trish and I. So we are going to start off. It is it's February. Dates, messing up dates, easiest part of the show. It is Sunday, February 2nd, 2025, and we are going to start our show today with a discussion of updates to the Janel Grant lawsuit against Vince McMahon, WWE, and John Laurinaitis. As always, we want to give a warning for content, and I think I sort of wanted to say especially, it is rough out there right now, folks. It has been a tough couple weeks, especially for everybody, but people living in the United States. If wrestling is your happy place and this is a topic you just don't want to engage in today, we put timestamps on everything. So please, take care of yourself. Feel free to skip it. We hope you will listen. We think it's a really important topic and one that we will always cover. But we also want to be understanding of where folks are mentally. And if you need to take a break, it's okay. Take a break. So the update came this week on Friday, January 31st, when Janel Grant's lawyer, Ann Callis, filed an amended complaint to Janel Grant's original lawsuit, which came out last January. I'm not sure the specific date, but I think it was end of January sometime. It was very close to the Royal Rumble at that point as well.
It was the Friday before the Royal Rumble.
Yeah. So the timing is very similar. The complaint is not... It's kind of interesting. The original lawsuit was 67 pages. The new complaint is 101 pages. I don't think there's anything really specific. There's nothing major that has come out of this in some ways, but there's more detail added to some of the complaints, where the original lawsuit referred to people by titles as like Corporate Officer 1, Corporate Officer 2, Corporate Officer 3, Corporate Officer 4. This time, names are specifically given out. Brock Lesnar's name is no longer redacted, and more details. There's more text messages, more even transcripts of voice recordings and voicemails that are included. All of this with the goal of asking the judge to not remove this case to arbitration, which was a thing that was called out as being the resolution of any issue that Janel Grant had with Vince McMahon or WWE was supposed to go to arbitration as part of the NDA that she signed, where she was supposed to be paid $3 million, and it would ensure her silence in discussing her relationship with Vince McMahon. Janel Grant is arguing that this is not, the NDA should not be enforceable for a number of reasons. One of the things that came out was one of the updates that was more talked about in the amendment was that the quick, Janel Grant's lawyer is arguing that the NDA was signed essentially under coercion, that the attorney that Janel Grant used for the case was paid for by Vince McMahon and found for by the Peak Wellness dude, Chris Colker. And so as a result, the NDA, the whole thing was done in 8 days. And even the attorney that Vince McMahon paid for thought that she was not necessarily getting a good check with the NDA that it was a bad idea. So that's a big part of the lawsuit. In addition, some of the other details that came out with the amendment was that Vince McMahon instructed Janel Grant to create customized pornographic content for producer Michael Hayes and his crew. Michael Hayes still employed by WWE. The other interesting piece that came out of this was that at one point there was a redesign of the office layout for the C-suite for WWE. This redesign was done by Nick Khan and Brad Blum, and that as part of this there was a private door from Grant's office to John Laurinaitis' office, and quite often she was called in through that door to perform oral sex. This office shared a wall with Triple H's office in the same location. There's been a lot of debate and discussion about this in terms of what this means. And then another thing that came out in the amendment was a reiteration of the claim that the board of directors of WWE never reached out to Janel Grant or her attorneys when they did their investigation after the first Wall Street Journal article came out about Vince's NDAs. No one spoke to her. She was preparing to speak to them, and they never reached out before they closed the investigation. There's another new claim that Janel Grant alleged that McMahon was viewing nude photographs of Grant while being filmed for the Netflix documentary that was released called Mr. McMahon. And in the complaint, there's a still from the documentary of McMahon in the conference room looking at his phone, compared to, it's got next to screenshots of Janel Grant's text message interactions with McMahon. Like I said, there's nothing... The substance of Janel Grant's claim is not really particularly different in this amendment. There's just more specific detail that are added, and like I said, more updated, text message and other stuff. We'll see what happens with this right now. It's essentially up to the judge to determine. The next case is the judge has to determine whether or not the case will go to arbitration. That's basically the next step. There's no timeline for when that happens. There's no date by which the judge has to make a ruling. So we will see. But Trish, any thoughts on the amended complaint? And I should also point out that we want to thank Post Wrestling for their write-up of the amended complaint as well.
Yeah, so just to add on to that, the first step is this complaint has to be accepted as an amendment. And then the decision is whether it will go to arbitration. The judge... The idea, I think, especially with the kind of extension of this complaint, is to show that there is a pattern of behaviour.
Yes.
So this isn't one thing that happened. This is about a workplace culture and about something that was repetitive behaviour from Vince McMahon. And that's why you bring in things like the $7.5 million payment to a former wrestler. That's why they bring in things like the Rita Chatterton case. And that's why there's such a focus on the coercion, because they're trying to, so the Vince McMahon WWE side are trying to say that this is just a relationship and that there was no kind of power involved, and everything that's involved in this is to show that everything was kind of done under duress and that it was all kind of predetermined. Like there was all these things were happening to kind of enable this behaviour, and this was a pattern that had been going on for some time. What I thought was probably the biggest thing was, so you had the reference to kind of pornographic content for Michael Hayes and his crew. So again, we're talking about how far did this culture go? That's questions that kind of need answering. And then the kind of involvement of Nick Khan again. Mm-hmm. So Brad Blum and Nick Khan were mentioned several times during the initial lawsuit, to the point where I think people forget kind of how much that they were kind of mentioned together. So Janel Grant said that when she first met Nick Khan, that it was in a hallway and she introduced herself to him and he said, "Oh, I know exactly who you were." And then it was also noted that, this was early 2021, due to COVID, there weren't many people working in the office, both of them were. And the claim was that it was small enough to know who everyone was, but he is involved in, from her complaint, he's involved in several sections alongside Brad Blum in terms of having involvement in kind of all these things going on, up to the NDA. So in the original lawsuit, it said the negotiations of the NDA were brief. last only 8 days. And Grant was reminded by Vince McMahon that the NDA ought to address people who knew about the relationship, including but not limited to Nick Khan, Brad Blum, John Laurinaitis, and McMahon's personal assistants. And then while he was away in 2022, he also says that it would be the last time you hear from him. If she need anything, she has to contact Nick Khan or Brad Blum. So at the start of this, when this kind of detail comes out, it's by her complaint, Nick Khan is fully aware of this. And there's kind of a focus on Nick Khan at the moment because there's been a number of different cases that have involved his name in some way, mostly by association, or they are involving people that he has hired since with kind of allegations either made against them previously or being made now. So Lee Fitting, who was hired as WWE's head of media and production, the former senior VP of production at ESPN. He was hired 5 months after he was fired by ESPN. The Athletic were the ones that broke the allegations on him. They spoke to more than 20 women, including 6 who participated in the network's 2023 investigation, who described a workplace culture under Fitting that had offensive and sexual language, including lewd jokes about women and their appearance. ESPN at the time indicated that Fitting was fired for Emmy Award-winning shenanigans. So the question becomes, we have this investigation that the board of directors, actioned, and Janel Grant says that they didn't speak to her, but he would have been aware of the findings being on that board of directors. How much was he aware of this ESPN investigation before he hired Lee Fitting? There's been no comment on Lee Fitting since these allegations came out by WWE. He also hired Jamie Horowitz, who is also... do you want to explain the Fox Sports one better than me? I'm sure you can. Yeah.
So there's been some lawsuits filed against not Jamie Horowitz, but Charlie Dixon, who is an executive at Fox Sports, indicating that he has been inappropriate with a number of women, on-air talent, former hairstylists, and he basically, made physical advances on a woman named Julie Stewart-Binks, who was a former Fox reporter. She alleges that Dixon called her to his hotel room, said he wanted to talk about her on air, tried to kiss her. She ran away, and then she was basically pushed out of her job and told she wasn't doing a good enough job and essentially, fired. Part of this was that Charlie Dixon, and again, this goes back to what Nick Khan did before he was associated with WWE. He was an agent for people in sports, not sports reporting, sports like Ariel Helwani, all these guys. He was their agent and part of dealing with deals for them. So Charlie Dixon and Jamie Horowitz knew him because they were represented by CAA, which is where Nick Khan was head of talent. I believe his specific title had something to do with sports announcers and reporting. And Stuart Binks was called in by these guys and told by Nick Khan, she alleges, that she needed to dump her agent and go with the CAA team because then they would be on the same page as Dixon and Horowitz. So, again, it kind of, according to her, it goes to some conversations about what exactly is Nick Khan doing to enable some of these guys, or what is he doing to try to prevent some of these guys from doing any of this weird stuff, like sexual.
Yeah, and he hired Jamie Horowitz, who was fired from Fox Sports in July 2017 after they had launched an investigation into sexual harassment allegations made against him.
Yes.
So, is he enabling this culture? What is he doing about this culture? Why does his name keep coming up in these kind of investigations? So
Horowitz was with TKO until last year when he was let go as part of the restructuring between TKO and WWE, essentially his position being duplicated.
So there are questions for him to answer, and how much did you know before you hired some of these people? Why are you entertaining them working for your companies or your new company if you did have knowledge? And then there's all the unanswered questions from last year. So do we still know if Triple H has read the lawsuit yet? Probably not. Why are WWE pushing this for arbitration? If there's nothing they're fearful of, why do they feel it needs to go to arbitration? Why have they not addressed any of the allegations of negligence or misconduct, not just in the Janel Grant case, but in the Ring Boys lawsuit, or anything else that's been raised from Ash Massaro to, there's been a number over the last year. What has, been put in place to protect these people going forward? These people that are in their workplace. It's all very well. You had the wishy-washy. I think the most we ever had was Shawn Michaels saying, I acting like kind of, I have this paper, but now I've forgotten it. Like I did my homework, but it's at home.
Yeah, we have a policy, but I can't remember exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your policy? What is your safeguarding? What is the line to be able to, raise the alarm when the power structures that are in wrestling are in place? And then, why was Janel Grant not interviewed during this internal investigation? Who was aware of the contents of this investigation? Why haven't Vince's side been able to kind of counter all these things? He says that he has, if you see these texts in context, that you'd think differently, but we haven't seen them publicly. Yeah. They've not been submitted into court. And then you've got the other question as well of, who gave the information to the Wall Street Journal still?
Yep.
It was somebody from the board. They know that because of the distinct information that was coming from within. There was a statement in reply to this amended complaint from Vince McMahon's lawyer, Jessica Rosenberg, that said, as expected, the proposed amended complaint is nothing more than the latest publicity stunt in an ongoing smear campaign. It's filled with desperate falsehoods from a team that continues to disregard the law and the truth. End statement. So there's no reaction to anything that was claimed within this. It's just very much, the similar kind of statement as they've made previously. As today, I don't think I've seen anything from John Laurinaitis' legal team or from WWE making a statement on this. And the thing about this one now is, for the current time, this is likely the last of current legal action towards Vince McMahon currently. So, we've moved into, and you spoke about this at the very start, we've moved into a different kind of time frame now, where the Southern District in New York case, Vince McMahon is telling people that that's going nowhere. I think it's highly likely that is going nowhere when you look at what's happening with other cases since this administration's taken over. And his SEC case was resolved in terms of he was charged, but the financial kind of charge to that it's a drop in the hat, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you aren't going to see a federal investigation into Vince McMahon going to court at the moment. I can't see it. I would be amazed especially because of the way, how heavily Linda especially is involved in that administration.
Yeah.
And that's the world we're living in now. So it feels awful to say that the only way you're going to see anything kind of justice against this man and everyone else that's involved in the potential, negligence or cover-up or anything else is through this lawsuit, and that relies on it, an amended complaint being accepted and then it going, to court or to discovery rather than arbitration. Yep. But that's kind of the situation that we're in, and that they're in. And I think it's difficult. It's difficult to look at it and feel confident in that regard. That and the thing is I see a load of stuff lately, and they want to make this kind of lawsuit. I think it falls into that tribalism sometimes, where people are doing. No, it shouldn't. But I've seen a lot of it where it kind of feels like, oh, you want to be strong. I'm not interested in that. I think the thing is for me is that the victims in this, it's harder and harder for them to kind of have justice on things that have happened. And that should be the central thing, It's these people that have gone through this and how they can change the culture, and we can change the culture in that company or change the culture in wrestling for the future, are still the central points. So, it's still very much an important case in terms of that having an outlet. And I think it's hard to not be despondent about the next few years, but we'll see what the judge Judge Sarah F. Russell what ruling she makes, and what happens from there. But yeah, I think it's difficult to see the path forward outside of that. I think Dave Meltz made a pretty important point that the Grant side have won every legal ruling so far.
Yes.
So there's a possibility in that, but yeah, that's exactly where we're up to right now.
Yeah, despondent is definitely, it's hard. It's hard to see this stuff and think, there's any recourse for someone who doesn't want to do what a powerful man wants them to do, whether it be professionally, sexually, anything like that. But, we just have to get through it and try our best to stay, remember that there's things that are right and things that are wrong, and sometimes the shit's just fucking wrong. And even if nothing's done about it, there's nothing preventing us from speaking up and pointing out that it's happening.
Yeah, and the more we have to do that, the better, we need to do that. And there still needs to be that focus on it, especially as media kind of diversifies, and we're seeing that from the top down in politics at the moment. Yep. The opportunities to challenge are becoming far, far less. So you've got to try and keep, not flames to the feet, but kind of the focus on these things. Otherwise, they will fall to the wayside. And it's kind of a very volatile, changing era at the moment. So, but that is the update on that. WWE's reaction. So there was no statement. There's been no questions. There was no questions at the press conference.
No.
Which was very, very, if you watch it, very, very carefully coordinated. So they had an opening question on the Triple H Hall of Fame. Yeah, the Paul Levesque Hall of Fame for Paul Levesque. It's quite impressive. Which
he hates the spotlight, Trish. He hates the spotlight. He doesn't want to be out there. They forced him to do it. I mean, he had no idea that they were going to do this. It's shocking.
I swear, right? If you watch if you watch the press conference and you watch his little sniveling kind of, I finally got my moment. I saw everybody else get their moment, and it's finally me. Let's not forget that he's actually been inducted before. Yeah. But it was quite a performance, and but that was a clever strategy for them in terms of this week, because everybody knew that this was coming this week. They set the deadline for the 31st of January. Yes. It's not a surprise like the original filing was last year. Last year. This is completely different. So they were fully much prepared for it, and he does his Hall of Fame announcement. Very bad kind of acting skills. It's bad if Dave Meltz is pointing out that you can't act on it. To say like, this was a complete surprise for the Hall of Fame that I picked myself, and when you had merchandise ready hours after the announcement with the full design. But no, I think they created it's not a distraction there, but they created a very heavy kind of rhetoric this week on what they wanted people to focus on. Mm-hmm. And they very much kept that. And it was the same with the press conference. He did 30 minutes. At least 15 minutes of it was like a soliloquy, and he was reading very much off he had a piece of paper and highlighted bits, and he was very much keeping to that. This is the thing, right? So I get that everybody wants every single reporter to ask like a tough question, because we want accountability. We're desperate to see accountability on these things. The issue is that I don't think they're ever going to put themselves in that situation again.
No.
And definitely not with these post-show, things that are on Netflix and Peacock, and they're not going to put themselves through it. So, like, he takes 4 questions. The first one's on the Hall of Fame, as you mentioned. The second one's a local outlet. The third was Sportskeeda, which got a kayfabe question, or like a booking Romania question, which is someone they use often. Mm-hmm. Most, and then the fourth one was a question on engagement from Scream Ramp, which has a completely rehearsed answer. You can't watch it and not think it's rehearsed. And then goes straight into a segment on their panel where they talk about the Instagram engagement on a certain thing. Yeah. It's like, it's set up. You can see it, and that's what they're going to do now. And Cena was on there, and he does like a full, I'm just going to do like a speech. I'm not taking any questions. They are not going to give people the opportunity to do that now, because they did take damage last year around the Rumble. in terms of their response, not just the actual allegations and the complaint, but they took challenge about their response. You know, the Brandon Thurston question actually made headlines nationally. I think it had ABC writing headlines. So they've just decided, you can see it, that's a closed shop. And the messaging, sorry.
No, they have enough they are media friendly as an outfit, and Nick Khan has enough media contacts that they will be able to put Triple H and whoever they want to, and we're going to talk about Stephanie McMahon on Pat McAfee. There'll be plenty of places, Ariel Helwani, where they can go and do the puff journalism and never be asked a difficult question about this ever again.
Yep, and that's, again, that continues to trend of what's happening in politics, what's happening in other companies. So in fact, they're just following what UFC have done.
Yes.
UFC have got a fighter that's made some horrendous comments this week, and he won't even be released because they don't feel any accountability.
There's no reason to. People are still going to watch.
Yeah, and they even feel even more protected now with the change in administration.
Right.
So. And then to go with that effort, so, they close that media down, you have their media line, they spread it all through, we're not going to get any other headlines. They then use things like, so they fed the story around Alexa Bliss.
Yes.
And, yeah. And I think Sean Rossap came out today and said originally Shotzi was originally going to be in that spot, and there was a late change into Alexa Bliss.
Yes. So just to give we have to get the backstory because we do that thing where we think everybody knows. Basically, Alexa Bliss, there was discussions about her being needing her contract to be re-signed and whether she had re-signed. And there was something that came out with Mike Johnson, a PW Insider, earlier this week that they were far apart. Alexa Bliss was far apart with the WWE on money, and it was very unlikely that she was going to be at the Rumble.
Yeah, and this was completely fed.
Yeah.
They did this for a reason.
Yes.
So she comes out and Michael Cole's screaming, well, I thought the internet said she would never coming back. And they feed a line to Wade Barrett where he says, well, that's what you get for listening to the dirt sheets.
Right.
So this is a week where they don't want you to listen to news sites. They don't want you looking at anything that is going to analyse this or is going to publicise what's happened.
Right. You can't believe them. You can't believe it. The stuff these guys tell you. You can't believe what they're telling you. Exactly. I think they even cut to a sign in the audience that said something like dirt sheets or garbage or something like that.
I think they had one that was like Meltzer's afraid of facts or something like that. Yeah. So there was very much an agenda with that, and that's, I hate stuff like that. But the whole idea was, so do you really believe women are unhappy in WWE when you're told? Because you were told that she's unhappy, but look, she's back and she's in the Rumble, and Nikki Bella's back and in the Rumble.
Yep.
People that have been outspoken the last year about someone's been outspoken about WWE and the things that had happened there with the Janel Grant case. So it's like, they very deliberately kind of held this line, and they've kind of attacked it at all different sides. And then we had Stephanie McMahon went on to the Pat McAfee show, saying to print out her new ESPN Plus show. And I thought this was really interesting because I watched it because it was the first interview she's done since everything that's happened. And I thought it would give us a really good idea on what the line is that they're using kind of going forward. And it really did, actually. I think it summed up things really quite nicely in terms of how they're approaching this. Because she talked about, I got to usher in the Triple H era, and then she did the Rumble intro, and, they're going to continue to do that because it's this change effect. And then she had a comment when she was asked about kind of, how did you feel about people that make comments about your family or talk about your family? And she said, it's just noise. People have opinions no matter what. You can think you know what's going on. You can give whatever dirt you know, but at the end of the day, I know where I stand, and that is where I have to be grounded and rooted. And I thought, it's just noise. That's how they want this portrayed.
Yeah.
This isn't anything worth you hearing. This isn't worth you looking into. This isn't worth you reading about. It's just noise. Something as serious as, the way women are treated, and men, for that regard, in your company, it's just noise. And that's what they want to get across. That's it. Yeah. And then they obviously have a big distraction technique when, they do the Rumbles, and they have a shock winner for one. And that's your headlines.
Yep.
We're not going to review the Rumble, strangely enough.
Yeah.
It's not for us to do anyway. I think I know there's other places on network that will go through it and talk about the creative and everything like that. I did get a live report that I found was quite interesting. Moving on to their business side, that kind of described that, we'd always look at the price rising and how much that kind of affects things. And for these big events, I don't think it does once people are there.
Yeah.
They seem to kind of get caught up in the atmosphere. And when it came to the winner, it was very much a shock, but a lot of people were behind them. And I think you see that difference between...
Yep.
I think about it and I just think, we are not the target audience for this show.
No.
It's not us.
No.
We're not the audience. We haven't been the audience for a very long time. But will it make their audience happy? We'll see, I guess. Are they just happy because they like doing a dance thing? Or, or do they believe in this guy? That's not for us to say because we're not that audience,
No.
But we'll see how that goes. But that very much was a clever distraction because from their mindset, what they're saying is, this guy's fans have getting behind him. We've given them something.
Yep.
So that's all your headlines. It's a shock winner. He was in there with a huge star power. And I think this is something you can see, they have this big show and it's full of baby faces. It's full of stars. And that's exactly what they want. And that is where they're lapping everybody else at the moment. And it's difficult. That's sometimes difficult to comprehend. But it's like the way they look at it is, so they pushed this guy. He came up himself. He got hot. He got over with the fan base. He wasn't a chosen guy. And then we can promote this second event in Toronto, which we're currently at like 26K on, that we really need to kind of get in. So that's kind of how they look at it. I'm not going to judge the reception on it because I don't know. We'll see how they go forward with that. But
well,
yeah,
I
think it was a whole strategy from beginning of the week to the end. It's my point.
No, I think you're absolutely right on the strategy, and I think you're absolutely right on the winner, and I think it helps them in multiple ways, because I think from a booking perspective, you can kind of see how they are hedging around The Rock, right?
Yeah.
That there's very clearly they don't want what happened last year, which was that it was very obvious that The Rock fucked with all their carefully laid plans, right? It was very obvious. Cody wins the Rumble, and then he comes out and gives the saddest promo in the history of mankind and says he's not going to be able to, right? So they don't want that.
Do you remember when people pretended he wasn't upset?
Oh my God. Oh my God. So from this perspective, the win goes to Jay. It doesn't go to any of their other top stars. It also gives them the opportunity to kind of not have to deal with the top stars who might be politicking very hard on their Mania spots, right?
Yep.
There's no pressure from that because Jay won the Rumble. No, everybody knows Jey Uso's not getting a main event, but you kind of have that in your back pocket if you need it, right? But the reality is now you have optionality, and if you end up with The Rock suddenly saying, yeah, I'm going to show up and I want a Mania match, you can move the chess pieces around and it's not as obtrusive as it would have been otherwise, right? They've preserved some options with Punk and Roman, and throwing Reigns in there gives them some options. And then they have, he's saying he wants Gunther, and you have Cody. Like they've given themselves an out in a couple of ways, which I thought was pretty fascinating. It's always funny when people are like, you have no idea what's happening and it's good. And it's like, why do you have no idea what's happening? What's the reason behind why we don't know what these matches are? Is it because they don't know what the matches are? Because they're not sure what fucking Dwayne's going to do?
Quite possibly. But yeah, I think the Cena's been all over the graphics for Elimination Chamber.
Yes,
since the start. He's already doing he did the full promo instead of the press conference. He just went and did a promo on, I'm going to win this and going to main event WrestleMania. So the most obvious match is there, but yeah, you've left the other option open, which I guess is smart from their perspective of not really kind of knowing what's going on. He was, the most agreeable option for them for sure.
They never want to look like they don't have a plan. It seems as though they get the most, they never want it to come across like they didn't plan something or they haven't laid this out. They always want to seem like they're a step ahead of everybody else. And so this gives them the opportunity to be like, no, this was what we were always going to do. We were always going to do this. And even if it wasn't for WrestleMania. So, yeah.
They had this ridiculous thing across the bottom of the screen on Netflix. And it's like, Netflix do this thing where it's like, they try and make things as introductory as possible, right?
Yes.
So they do it with the NFL. So when we had the breaks, because we don't have the ads in the UK on there, so when we had the breaks during the NFL at Christmas, they were doing kind of, here's an introduction to the NFL, and it was literally like YouTube video of like, how to throw a ball. It was just ridiculous. And it was very much felt like that, because they were on the bottom and they were like, Penta has... Penta's a good one because he was awful. Penta has been eliminated.
Yeah.
Like, Alexa Bliss has been eliminated. And I was just watching it going, God, like, I don't know. Mate, I couldn't feel further from it. But anyway, it was
the
just...
wrestling
it's an interesting choice.
It's funny how much Vince McMahon hated the wrestling part of it. And with Vince being gone, finally, they're farthest away from the wrestling being the important thing. Like, the wrestling is the least important part of any of this now. Like, that nobody talks about it. Like, even Dave Meltzer, God love him, doesn't talk about the wrestling. He's excited about the promos. He's excited about he doesn't say, that'll be a good match. Right? What was the thing he said this morning about the Women's Rumble that absolutely cracked me up? Where he was talking about, the women's match, the Women's Rumble wasn't really anything other than just a bunch of entrances, but people are really excited about the entrances, so it was a good thing. And I was like, okay, like this is where we're at. Like they're popular, so whatever they do is good, and nobody actually engages with whether the content or the quality of the content is good. It's just, hey, it was there.
I think you kind of have to. They have to be careful of that. So things like the work shoot stuff and the Drew McIntyre stuff, all that stuff needs to go. You will run the risk if you continue doing that. And, it's not like everybody stays hot forever.
No.
And, they get a boost. They've definitely got a boost from going to Netflix in terms of their ticketing. I know Dave's mentioned kind of the last few shows doing kind of between 4,000 and 5,000 the last couple of weeks. And it's right. I checked through the detail. I checked through to see if there was any major kind of comping. And there's not. So they definitely have got a live boost from that. How long that continues for, we'll see. It's when you get to the summer, things change, and but from the immediacy, they absolutely have. And this was a massively successful event in terms of gating, and this would call it a highest grossing single night event in the US, third highest gate in their history. They did there was a funny thing in a press conference where I think Triple H said it was over 70,000 and a number flashes on screen and it's like, it's 65! That was quite good. But no, it's been an interesting month for them because it's successful in terms of their live ticketing has been for Raw especially. You've also had some numbers that have kind of not so much. You've had Saturday night's main event, huge decrease down from the previous kind of one in December. You've had some probably flow over from Raw going to Netflix onto CW with older viewers. So if you had to watch Fox on SmackDown, and you don't have cable and you don't have Netflix, then that's probably why we're seeing more older viewers onto NXT at the moment. You've also got a number of main roster women over at NXT, which also always helps them. I think Bayley's and Bianca have been over there in the last couple of weeks. And then you're seeing kind of SmackDown being able to hold at 3 hours in a way that we probably didn't predict it to.
No.
So they still have the drop in the same way that you would expect that you saw with Raw previously. But it is holding at a decent level. And I think we're probably seeing some of that over to AEW. I do agree on that theory of the US. So that is a thing that's happening. I would say on that as well, I've seen... kill me. But I did see someone try to kind of use the SME. So the Peacock have provided a number to Brian Alvarez of 600,000 viewers additional. And we don't know if it's an average viewer like we would on Nielsen or just a total viewers. But even if it's an average viewer, so... I think he tried to use that to say, how many max viewership we could have. And I spoke to someone about this because, I think that's probably the big kind of number that everybody wants, that nobody has, and nobody's probably ever going to have.
No.
But it would be really careful to use the Saturday Night's Main Event numbers or any numbers from Peacock, because the way this was described to me is Peacock is a destination for WWE programming.
Yes.
So if you want to watch the pay-per-views... you must have Peacock in the US.
Yes.
Or, okay? Whereas if you want to watch AEW, you do not need to have Max. There is nothing additional content-wise. So yes, people talked about the quality of the stream, but it's nothing additional content-wise that means you need to have Max. So that will give you a different viewership. And then to go with that, the percentage of younger viewers for WWE is far higher, and they are the more likely group to be streaming. So you have to change your percentage depending on kind of the makeup of your kind of audience to then try and find a max percentage. So I'd still be really careful about trying to kind of use WWE numbers.
Yeah.
To kind of look at a max. But, WWE are trying to put a lot of pressure on AEW globally at the moment.
A huge amount of pressure on AEW.
Yeah.
Yes. They sense blood in the fucking water, and they are going for them all over the place. Squeezing them like we talked about last time on multiple sides. It's getting worse, right? So last night they announced that Evolve is going to be airing on Tubi on Wednesday nights. Evolve is now the new developmental show because the NXT developmental show is now no longer developmental. It's just a show. So this is going to be your NIL recruits doing their very first matches. I can't envision why anybody would want to watch that.
Well, they're going to have WWE ID guys as well.
Sure.
Girls. So they're going to have people that,
actually know how
have
to wrestle.
names on the indies too.
Yeah.
But this is like 10 years of Gabe Sapolsky trying to get involved on WWE television. And it's finally happened. There you go. But I think the Tubi one is interesting because that was a rumoured home for Shockwave back in September. In fact, there was a Fightful report that said that there had been discussion backstage and within the TV world that select content from AEW could be headed to Tubi. Tubi is a Fox-owned platform that previously obviously tried to bring in wrestling with MLW, which resulted in a WWE lawsuit, which has them paying everyone that they do currently. If you look at the MLW lineups, they think they're crazy. It's because of that lawsuit. But yeah, it's an interesting thing because it's another thing they've cut off, and I don't think there'll be a block on them having other content from other companies. I think with the antitrust thing, they probably can't be.
Yeah, there's no exclusive like they used to have for some of this stuff for different networks. Yes.
No, but the whole idea is to flood the kind of the market. So it's all about market share. I mean, we spoke briefly. So you've now got content on Netflix, all across the world. You've got content in the US on Peacock, on A&E, on ESPN Plus, on USA, on CW, on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. I know I wrote X. Just ignore me. And now Tubi. So what happens is that you completely kind of flood the market. So it's the most visible thing. So if you think about AEW now, having lost Dark and Dark Elevation and Rampage to expect, when you, on a Saturday after Collision, how much AEW content do you see to the Wednesday?
Hey EW, and that's about it.
Yeah, and
maybe they do an up close that they release on Wednesday or Tuesday.
So they release that content, and at the same time, how much stuff is WWE putting into their Vault channel? Oh. How much stuff are they releasing otherwise? Then you've got the TV, your Raw, your NXT. Then you've got your Speed stuff on X. Then you've got everything else going on with your supplementary programming, like your A&E and whatever. You're going to have this LFG program, Legends and Future. I can't think. But yeah, that's an interesting title. I'm sure everyone's kind of looked at that one. But it's, so the whole idea is you are just flooding the network. So there's no room for anything else to breathe or be noticed. And, to aid with that, they're also using TNA. So you're using TNA to pick up your international rights. We've seen what happened with Canada. And then we've been let know that in India, there's been a flooding of TNA content onto Eurosport India, which is AEW's channel. Who are now being kind of outnumbered by TNA programming on that channel. And when you look at the viewership numbers, what's going to get more? A show that's filled with kind of, when they do like the Legends programs and stuff for these big XW stars that were huge in that area, like Jeff Hardy, or, and Sting and everyone else, and then, or is it going to be kind of the AEW stuff? So they are kind of, by having so much of that programming there, they will reduce AEW's value in that country. It must be pointed out that Eurosport is a WBD network. So that's it's a strange one, isn't it? But yeah, so that's how they're kind of working into trying to kind of suffocate as much of this TV kind of viewership or attention as possible. And then on top of that, we saw this week the announce of Clash in Paris. Obviously, they couldn't come up with no name. Somebody told me they should have called it No Mercy. Spelled like...
I shouldn't have laughed at that. That's terrible. Terrible. No.
I kept such a straight face with that one as well. I'm quite impressed.
We have to move on. We can't go on.
Anyway, so Clash in Paris, which is announced for 31st of August, which happens to be the week after Forbidden Door in London, which is still not been announced on sale. The expectation is that would be because it's at the O2 and WWE have a show in there in March, and that's now on hold until after that show. So that is at La Défense Arena, which if you watch the Olympic swimming, that was the incredible venue for a lot of for all of that action. It's actually normally a home ground to Racing 92 at a rugby team, has a capacity of 40,000. So they are kind of absolutely kind of they're going to put them tickets on sale first. You can guarantee it. It's an attractive proposition. If you've seen the big screen, it's similar to the big screen that you've got at the Tokyo Dome, where it will kind of make for a huge kind of, just the graphics, everything like that. The presentation will just look big. And that's a move where they've kind of undercut AEW in a lot of ways. They're looking at it as, you know, this is something that we're doing in terms of our international kind of output. And Stephanie McMahon, when she was on Pat McAfee, was also very big on, you know, international was a big part of our kind of future plans. She actually kind of talked about NXT being a thing against in different countries around the world. So if you thought that's gone away, that was an interesting thing to see to see her say. But it's, yeah, they very much are kind of targeting them as live events. You've now got TNA running kind of venues that are associated with AEW, as we spoke about last week, and doing live tapings on a Thursday night. Even though they have a small crew now, and it would make much more sense to tape in mass. Should we talk about your theory on that? Because I actually think that's quite interesting. So we're not reporting this is a theory, but I could see it. Go on.
So Trish and I were talking about this. Currently, TNA airs on Thursday nights, right? What we talked about. And there's been some discussion or some theorizing that at some point with the NBA going off of WBD, that Collision could move off of Saturday onto a weeknight. Thursday would make the most sense from both their taping schedule and, you know, what other nights of the week have wrestling on them. And so I thought, you know, is getting behind TNA as a live touring opportunity a way to undercut a potential Collision move to Thursday by saying, hey, there's already wrestling on TV on that. And again, Access is a very small channel. I get all that. I just think if you know, WWE is pretty transparent, right? They're always trying to get, you know, why WWE tech people are helping out TNA in terms of how to produce a live broadcast. You know, they're not doing it out of the good of their souls.
No, and it's just about attention. You know, you take attention away from them, you take promotion away from them. You know, it's all part of the flooding the market theory to me. And, you know, any way that you can try and reduce their options seems to be the kind of thing they're looking
at. With venues, with locations, like you got to book two places for, you know, TNA doesn't have to book for a Thursday and a Wednesday. You know, it's.
Yeah, it's just making everything more difficult. And it's the same with the signings. You know, this WWE ID system. Yep. You know, it's going to be far more attractive to people than a per-date deal at this current time. You've then got, you know, they're back to global tryouts. There's tryouts in the UK next month, which there's expectation that a lot of people are going to be picked up from. You know, Jim Smallman's now running around the UK doing the Gabe Sapolsky role here. And that just means, it just creates that extra pressure. So while, you know, there is opportunities for AEW this year, they have to kind of weather all these other things and then kind of take them. And, you know, you could look at some of the numbers and say, has Raw on Netflix helped them gain official viewership? And one area that I know the theory has been about is around the UK numbers. Now, UK numbers. Be very aware that this is very similar to thinking about AEW on Max and TNT in the US, okay? So a lot of viewership is on Fight. We do not know how much, or Triller.
Yep.
These stupid new names, I hate them. So I put that theory that has Raw had an impact to someone who knows far more than we do about UK television, and they basically told me, shut up. No, so their overall weekly ratings are kind of still within the same range of the top line that they can reach. The lead-ins are quite important on that. So when they talk about live viewership, I know Tony tweeted about live viewership on Friday. See, there's this guy, right? He comes from Warrington. He's a pretty big guy. He's the first person out of Warrington to win anything each year for like forever. And he throws these little things.
This is darts. You never
darts.
clarified that this is darts, so I have to make sure that I remember.
I wasn't trying to.
Oh.
I was doing a whole thing. It's fine.
Oh God, I fucking stepped on your punchline. No.
Anyway, yeah, it's ruined now. It's fine. So you've also got to look at the lead-ins. So like when we look at AEW's ratings in the US, and like the Collision a few weeks back that was after the college football game. And obviously they got a huge lead in and it really benefited them. Well, on Friday they got a lead in from Luke Littler, the new darts world champion. Top 3 placing in sports personality here in the UK. He might be the new Sheldon. Braiding straw. So I think that there's interesting insights, but I think we probably need to do a lot more detailed work into UK TV ratings, and then you still have that unknown about the Triller viewership. So that's another one to just be careful. I just feel like, we do a numbers podcast, and like all the numbers right now are just like, don't look at numbers. But it's very much a thing. But I think there are opportunities for AEW if they want to take them. Because of this shifting in viewership and some of the acts they're pushing, you're starting to do all the work shoot stuff that never ends well.
Nope.
But you do have to take them. There you go. That's a transition. That's all I wrote.
I'm so sorry. I stepped on your darts. I'm never going to forgive myself for this, Trish.
I want you to do this. It's fine.
It's the worst.
It's always their year. Warrington. It's always their year. Well, actually, this year is. Never mind. There's like 2 rugby league fans who listen to the whole podcast, so it doesn't really matter.
Listen, I have a pun that might make you happy.
Go on.
You just punctured the dreams of those who believe that Will Ospreay is a huge draw in the United Kingdom.
Oh,
get it? Punctured?
Don't get me into that war. Yeah. It's like. Right, you can look at any other week if you want to put anything together. It's fine, I don't care. But this week, it's like they got a huge lead in from probably the most popular sports star. He does Premier League ratings for his World Championship. So behave yourselves. It just needs more looking at. I think it's very top level of view, and I can get why Tony wants to sing about it because that's one of the most positive points globally. But
they should.
We're also talking about an audience of 114,000 the other week. There's context to it. But there's maybe we'll come back to that. Maybe I'll do some work on British. I should probably do some work on British TV ratings, but we'll with our friends from that. So let's do that. But so AEW opportunities. Come on, you can do it now. Ruin my line.
Oh, terrible. We're gonna break up. Would be like every other tag team in AEW, and
that's what it took. Yeah, that's what it took. It took a darts man from Warrington. Okay.
All right, I've got to get over this. So the big issue here, right? And I think it's one of the things that's worthwhile talking about because I think you see this with some of the AEW positivity fans where it's like, WWE is trying to screw them. WWE is trying to screw them. Yes, WWE is absolutely trying to screw them. It doesn't mean that AEW is not also shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly over and over again with like their booking and like stuff they're doing. So God, I don't know. Where do you even want to start with this, Trish?
Do you know what? Don't start of where I wrote, actually. Go down.
You want to go down to something else?
Start with the other stuff, and we'll come back to Tony and Max and everyone else.
Yeah.
You want to start? Let's just start with the Death Riders stuff.
Start with the Death Riders. So the Death Riders, I'm definitely hung up on the Death Rider stuff, and I think we talked a little bit about this last week, but one of the things I wanted to do is put numbers to some of the stuff that I've had in my head, because I think last week I enjoyed our podcast, we had a good venting session, but numbers are always better for us. We like statistics. I went back through the month of January because I was very curious about how much TV time and how many segments Jeff Jarrett has been getting on television this month. And in the month of January, Jeff Jarrett has had 10 separate segments on Collision or Dynamite. Most of them on Dynamite. 9 of those segments were on Dynamite with 1 segment on Collision. Jeff Jarrett has had 1, 2, 3 in-ring promo segments. 4 in-ring promo segments out of those 10 in-ring promos. He had 3 matches. He had, there's only been 1 Dynamite, this past Dynamite, January 29th, where he had only 1 segment. Every other Dynamite in the month of January, he had 2. Usually a backstage segment and an in-ring promo, sometimes a match and an in-ring promo. So I don't know. I probably could have spent some time going through to see who else has had that many segments on Dynamite. I don't think it's been anybody else. Maybe it's been the Death Riders. But when we talk about numbers and we talk about people who are being pushed, I don't think you can make the argument that Jeff Jarrett is not one of their most pushed people and definitely one of their most pushed baby faces, which, again, it's 2025. I don't know that Jeff Jarrett has a strong reputation as a draw. I'm not sure that the wrestling audience has a tremendous affection for Jeff Jarrett and feels that, they love Jeff Jarrett the way they loved Sting, for example, or even Bryan Danielson. And yet somehow we have decided that Jeff Jarrett is somebody we need to be promoting and pushing and talking about in the year 2025. When I talk about shooting yourself in the foot, this is one of these things.
Sarah,
right?
Sarah, WWE have the retirement year of John Cena.
Right!
Right, wait.
Get to it, girl. I know what's coming.
New Japan have the retirement year of Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Right.
And AEW decided this was a good idea to do Jeff Jarrett.
In 2025. and we're originally going to let this go till fucking All In. Okay?
That's been changed. That's been
changed,
yeah.
but so let's give them that for changing. But at some point somebody was like, yeah, we should do this till All In. Sure. This is like the kind of stuff, like I said, you shoot yourself in the foot. Like, I don't think that there's anybody, I understand people liked the fucking Owen promo, but is anybody desperate for a Jeff Jarrett title run or title chase in the year 2025 when you have that many talented younger wrestlers sitting backstage? Like, come on. So, fuck it. That's the numbers on Jeff Jarrett. I'm letting that go for now.
He's a great
fucking politicker.
Even in his old age, He's still, that's just one last run for the rodeo. But,
I mean, Trish, there's probably people at your work who want to drive the train, but your bosses say, no, you can't do it. You're not qualified. You don't know what you're doing. Like, just because Jeff Jarrett wants a title run doesn't mean you have to give him one. You could say, no, Jeff, we're not doing that. Thank you. It's not a good idea for us. But
don't give Jeff Jarrett a train.
He asked for it. He's a good politicker.
Oh,
you can say this is like people like the child is uncontrollable. Like, it's your child. Control it. Whatever.
Okay. Well, there's been 2 other segments obviously this week that go on.
No, it's being changed. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's been 2 other segments this week that kind of continued on from last week with the Death Rider YouTube section. And the Adam Copeland promo from last night, which you interrupted my rewatch of the repeat.
I did. I literally was like, it aired, and I was like, Trish, you have to watch this right this second. You cannot wait until tomorrow. Watch this right now. I need you to be in as bad a mood as I am right now.
I'm pretty sure I wrote no. I didn't even make me anyway.
And I did it. Yeah, I knew you would.
Yeah. So.
Oh, God help us.
So there was first of all, there was an up close released on last Tuesday.
Yep.
I want to say Tuesday.
It was Renee Paquette sitting down with the Death Riders, which was, I loved so much about this. While I also hated it, I just I think that Tunnel Talk has talked about like AEW segments that are bad in a very enjoyable and entertaining AEW way. And this was bad in an entertaining and enjoyable AEW way. Like there were things about this that I was like, in any other circumstance, I would be all over this. I would never stop talking about how great it is, but it didn't work within the context of what's attempting to happen. Basically, Renee Paquette went to her house in Cincinnati and interviewed the Death Riders in her basement where they were doing all sorts of weird Death Rider type stuff, right? So Pac is in the sauna. Claudio and John Moxley are just sort of jumping around some room while Marina Shafir and Yuta in the background are like slowly lifting weights in a very staged and fake way. It was just, she talked to all of them. You know, Mox ranted for like what felt like hours, but the whole thing was only 20 minutes. It was just, Trish, I loved this, but for the wrong reasons.
So what I thought was really interesting was some of the lines that were kind of said in it, and then this weird conflict between what he keeps talking about and then what actually ends up on screen.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So you've got this kind of thing where, you know, he's talking about, you know, we inherited a wasteland and I have this vision of 1,000 John Moxleys and, you know, this is supposed to be wrestlers for wrestlers and we're creating something new and all these different things. And then I watch the TV and I'm like, how is this like getting so lost? What is going wrong here?
How is it new? It's the same boring beatdown heat segments over and over and over again. We saw 5 of them on Wednesday, and we've seen them every show. Some old man gets duct taped. There's a run-in and a beatdown. It's a boring match that goes too long. We gave 57-year-old Jeff Jarrett aggressive offense, and he took 3 finishers to beat Claudio Castagnoli. Like, none of this is new or good or interesting. The disconnect on that was crazy to me.
It was so funny though, because it's just like, it just highlights, that whole segment just highlights like where this is going wrong.
Right.
And the first bit is that to the AW audience, Mox is a relatable character. He's always been an authentic character.
Yes.
And this character is not authentic.
No.
It's completely inauthentic. He's not, he's normally a straight talker. He's a killer. And now he's like, what? Like he has to cheat to win? And like is that John Moxley who talks in riddles? Like, I'm sorry, this is no disrespect to John Moxley. You are not this guy. You cannot play this guy.
No.
And it's like, you want to make a bloodline? Well, 1, you'd have to do this differently and it's not your audience. And 2, why would you make a bloodline when your Hangman Saga already exists in this company?
Right.
You know? But it was very much like...
Between client meetings, managing your business, and everyday tasks, who has time to worry about website hosting? With Kinsta's managed WordPress hosting, you don't have to. They handle the technical stuff, delivering lightning-fast load times, enterprise-grade security, and 24/7 365 human-only support. Simply switching to Kinsta could make your site up to 200% faster. Kinsta's custom dashboard makes managing sites easy, with powerful features designed to save you time and effort. Plus, their free expert-led migrations ensure a smooth transition. Ready to see why Kinsta is trusted by thousands of businesses? Get your first month free at Kinsta.com. That's KINSTA.com. Kinsta. Simply better hosting.
You're doing these things, and it's like, I keep looking at it and going, where is the Moxley that made Eddie Kingston and Kenny, and to an OC and Paige better at themselves? Where is this guy that would stand in a promo battle like 1-to-1? And work these kind of really kind of interesting emotional lines? Who are you? Like, where have you gone? Because, like, I don't see it. And you're talking about, we're going to make people work through it and I'm going to put them through what I went through and worse. Like, there's people on this roster that went through far more than you have. I don't understand what you are getting at. And then you stand there and you start talking about, creating something new and raising people up and a vision of 1,000 John Moxleys. Motherfucker, you're fighting Edge.
You're fighting Edge.
Fighting Edge.
You are fucking fighting Edge. What is happening? Like, no one's elevated. It's fucking Edge.
Like, you're fighting Edge. And not only doing that, you're doing it with ridiculously structured segments straight out of WWE in 2018.
Yep.
That are built around not the young guys or elevating someone upwards. No, they're built around making that pop for Adam Copeland. And you see it on TV this week. You have the Jay White Wheeler Yuta thing. Jay wins. The crowd finally respond after being silent because that's what you've done to every single one of these baby faces because they know they're just there as fodder. And it's like, for the crowd, they know that there is fodder. And then what? Oh, he gets saved by Adam Copeland and FTR. Big pop on the music. Well, it wasn't a big pop, but that was the idea. So that's where the pop is. But does then Jay White get the microphone? Are you going to allow this young guy to kind of step forward and step up to you?
No.
No. Dax Harwood gets the microphone.
to tell us that he's okay with the Death Riders. He doesn't really have a problem with them. It's just that they beat up old men. That's the issue. Otherwise, he respects them. What is wrong with you?
No, they beat up old men who they actually beat up themselves. So, forget, 2021, did he give him a spike pile driver? Oh, no, we really expect him. He's our hero. This 67-year-old man. Oh, wait, he's 68, but,
It's just like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And then Jay White sat in the corner. And it's the same. So then you have this this promo that Adam Copeland got last night.
This was so bad.
Okay, right. And the lines of the promo start, I've picked out some. So, can you do that, kid? Moxie's a kid, yeah, this is what we're doing. So this guy that has this thing, I need to bring up the young thing. Now he's like that, so is Mox the babyface or the heel? How does has that ever worked as a babyface line? Okay, fine. Right. And he talks about the briefcase that you hid away while we started streaming on a new network. Like, who the fuck cares? Like, that's not the reason for you to care. And it's like, and then he goes into the generic stuff that we all expected. Me and many like me made it better for your generation. Guaranteed contracts, less dates, that's because of us. You are entitled. Right, stop. Who are you cutting this on? This is Jon Moxley, right? So, what's the biggest change for contracts in the last decade? Or even more? It's AEW. It's the people that took a chance on AEW. Jon Moxley is one of them group.
Yep.
He's not entitled. And you're talking about, like, oh yeah, how much effort have been, how many matches has he wrestled in the last, 10 years compared to you? This is one of the hardest working wrestlers. Whether this current story sucks or not, it's still one of the hardest working wrestlers in the last 2 decades. Like, who are you talking to?
He takes off giant chunks of time to go shoot TV shows, which good for him. Not a problem. But don't talk about how you're a hard worker and you've changed the business when this is clearly and demonstrably not true.
But it's just so... Do you know what it reminded me of straight away? And I text you this, so I'm telling you this something I already know. It reminded me of the promo that Punk cut on Hangman in Vegas.
Yeah.
Very much, I'm responsible for this business and for what you've been able to do. When the whole ethos of AEW was, we're going to do something different and we're going to do this ourselves. And it completely misses that whole ethos. And it also reminded me, he kept saying at the end, he's like, step up and accept, kid. And I'm like, how have you allowed this to happen? You look at that Hangman Moxley promo where they use the word kid as a whole impetus to do 2 promos and then Hangman to deliver that money promo. And now we're using it as straight insult from a babyface to a heel that's supposed to be the centerpiece of this, this long-running bloodline style story. Like, this doesn't make any sense. But is this Adam Copeland? Because he's had this kind of intuition before. Right? So there was one last year that he did the promo on Daniel Garcia, and at the end he's like, you're now threatening to take food off my family's table, and that doesn't work for me. And that was just about a match. And then he did one when he came back in 2021 after he won the Rumble on, and I'll read you this, and I want you to work out who he was cutting this on, right? Okay, so he said, whilst you were wrestling once a week, I was here wrestling 6-7 times a week. If there was a double shot on Sundays, against guys like The Undertaker, John Cena, Randy Orton, Batista, Eddie Guerrero, Mr. Perfect, The British Bulldog, Terry Funk, over a time frame of 4 decades. Yes, that 4 decades is back. I am back here not because I have to be, but because I love this. I just don't like how you did this. You're better than this, but you're not better than me. It's the same fucking promo, by the way. Guess who
it's got to be Daniel. It's got to be Danielson.
Yeah, Daniel Bryan. Yeah, a guy that was like wrestling all across the world, and he apparently wasn't wrestling enough for Adam Copeland. Like, are you thinking about these things? I'm not sure you are, mate. Like, what are you doing? But hey, yeah, now at least we've got we've got some stakes for this feud that was once about the heart and soul of AEW, and we tried to shoehorn guys into it, but we wouldn't actually let them stand and talk. And then we put them or win. Yeah, none of them got wins over them, and they've had 2 between their groups now already, which is not a surprise to anybody. And we put them on the pay-per-view that was up against the WWE house show in terms of attendance, so that was always against it. And we made sure that they didn't get to speak, so these people that were in previous programs with Jon Moxley, now you don't get to speak, but we're going to make sure that Adam Copeland gets to speak every week. We're going to make sure he gets the big pops and gets over the gets kind of actioning over the heel group. He's gonna make the challenge. It's not John Moxley making a 1-on-3 challenge, against people that obviously aren't worth anything, in a match that was just set up for an Adam Copeland pop. No, we're going to let him make the challenge because he's the guy that's going to have agency, because that's Adam Copeland and he's a real star and he's our real babyface. And can you see how this program doesn't fucking work? Like, don't tell me that you want to raise anybody up and then do this and put him in the pay-per-view main event of Revolution.
Yeah.
Don't fucking tell me. And don't you dare fucking put Jay White in a defence now you've announced this match in Australia. Like, please, honest to God, like, what are you doing? Think about this. You are making baby faces wrestle to silence so Adam Copeland can get a pop, and then you're doing respect your elders themed after trying to shoehorn into other people into your fucking stupid story. And then you've got lines, like Dave wrote in The Observer saying, for pay-per-view, Revolution has a significant increase from World's End. It indicates a positive direction. You are setting guys up to succeed and fail in a way that's completely supposed to be the opposite of this ethos. It's fucking stupid. And then you're telling us that we don't get it, or it's not, we're doing this really serious thing. And essentially what you're doing is you think you're running around being very authentic and it's all very scary, and essentially all we're doing is actually watching Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
John Moxley and Scooby-Doo. Like, does that make Wheeler Yuta, like, scrappy? That might actually make Wheeler Yuta scrappy.
Or Yuta.
But I thought, that it doesn't add up. Your story doesn't match what you're doing on screen. It doesn't match the kind of people you're focusing on. It doesn't match who you're trying to, sell this to. And until you switch that, it's like, okay, so maybe we get through Revolution. I think I said in, you might not have seen this, I said in one of the live channels last night in our Discord, it was like, it's like fucking Lent at the moment. Like, we got to get through this to get the chocolate back. And then, maybe they do a All Ospreay program. Maybe they do, it was an MJF program. Maybe that switches now that Hangman's moving. We'll see. We'll talk about them in a minute. But what I've really thought was interesting is that you had this Copeland promo doing all the things where it wasn't even about, AEW. It wasn't about this fight. It wasn't about Defend the Company or anything like that. It had all these stupid meta lines that didn't fucking work, that no one gives a fuck about.
No one cares.
Right?
Stop with the meta bullshit. Can we please take these fucking feuds back to being personal and about relationships between people, and with this meta like, then no one understands what you're talking about. No, we don't, and don't hang a lampshade on it, you fucking dumbass.
But the thing is, there's a massive contradiction on that own show to what AEW does really well, and it should be like literally circle round the green. Someone should just go and paste it on the fucking desk everywhere. It was they also had the Ricochet and Swerve sit down promo.
Yes.
Which also involved, Renee Paquette. So you can't even say it was like working with someone different. And you had this thing where they come across, I know you've wrote it here, as equals. And they both kind of work to their characters in terms of like that. There's some meta stuff in, but it's worked in for the betterment. And I thought like Ricochet was really good on his opening bit of saying, like people told me I could come here because that's where the best is. It's not about what he did in WWE. Right. It's not about what he's done in the past or past generations. It's about, we came up together. So he associates himself with AEW straight away.
Yes.
And
I wrestled with all these guys.
Yes.
I was on the indies with all these guys. These are my contemporaries. These are my peers. Right. Yes. He did a really fucking good job of putting that down there, and in such a way he was not better than them, right? They're his fucking peers.
Yeah, I thought he was really, really good in that. And then, and they changed the dynamics. So we're not using the straight structure of, I'm going to make this challenge, or no, we're going to throw the dynamic because we're going to have Swerve come in the middle and we're going to change their energy. And we're going to play with the psychology of it, but we're not going to use tired old lions or that sort of thing. And I really like that they finally addressed him calling himself the most dangerous man, when he got destroyed by Hangman. And they used that and they made that emotional connection that nearly made him slip. And I thought that was a far more interesting lead into their match this week than what Copeland and Moxley have done the last 2 weeks.
It's a personal feud that's specific to those two guys. It doesn't have any giant future of AEW or I care about the next generation bullshit shit. It's just about two guys who don't like each other, who say they don't like each other, who have very specific and different defined personalities, right? who are both like, they both made their, I thought the thing I liked the most about it is how Ricochet made his weaknesses into his strengths. Right?
Yes.
He's awkward. He's not the best at promos. He admits it in the promo, but by doing that, he takes the power of it away, and he's so weirdly intense just sitting there with the glasses and the facial expression. Like, he looks like a fucking psycho. He looks like a creep weirdo. It works really well. There's nobody else doing shit like that on their roster, right? He's not some scary big man. He's not some, like, you know, meta bruiser guy. He's not talking about some bullshit. Like, it's a very specific personal feud. They gave them time to talk. I thought it was more effective that they did it in the backstage segment than if they had done an in-ring promo, because I think it allowed an intimacy that was more scary. I think one of the things I like the most about Swerve is that he's kind of embraced intimacy as a thing to, like, it unsettles a lot of his feuds, right? He had the intimacy of going to Hangman's house. There was the intimacy of, like, you know, being that face-to-face close with Swerve, right? Like there's scary horror type movie level stuff that seems to be stuff he goes in for. That's not anything you're seeing anybody else do. So it's more interesting and it's different, and it gives you, like, something else that's happening other than some of the same old wrestling bullshit that we see too much of.
It's innovative.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And that's, to me, like, AEW is his strong point, is when it is the most innovative, when it is challenging the kind of the lines between what's, you know, the expectations of professional wrestling and what you can make it.
Right.
And that's the huge difference maker. And I think it felt so blinding to see that after seeing the kind of stuff at the top. And, like, it makes me shake my head.
I'm going to sit in a dark room and growl at the camera with a shadowed light above me, because that's truly what the meaning of acting is. Give me a fucking break, dude.
It's the same promo for 5 years.
It's the same fucking promo over and over and over and over and over again. Like, you know.
Give it a break. Anyway.
This is what I do when I'm auditioning for a role. I get Beth to put the camcorder right up in my face, and I turn the lights off and just to leave the light in the bathroom on, and I read my lines into the thing, and I talk angry. Like, dude. I'm being a fucking bitch right now, but I don't care. I'm so over this fucking shit from people who should know better.
It's literally like Lent, honestly. We just have to get through this.
So
I'm
not optimistic. I don't think anything's better. I feel like I've been saying I just have to get through this for the last 14 pay-per-view cycles.
I'm banned from saying next cycle now. It's just banned from my itinerary. So something else that's kind of reached kind of a cumulative point in the last couple of weeks has been the Tony Storm reveal.
Yes.
Which you called. In fact, they kind of half owe you shirt loyalties.
I do deserve a little bit of shirt loyalty. No, come on. That was so clearly, like, the end point of that was that I don't know. But I was, like, so excited to see it. I was like, she said the thing. 8 people were like, oh my God, she said the thing to me, which I thought was great.
So, yeah, being that this is a story that you've been pretty much invested in since the start, what did you think of kind of the reveal and the follow-up after it?
I think that I'm going to probably take too much of a page from Tunnel Talk today, right? I don't think that this story is perfect, right? And I know that there are a lot of people who have disliked it, who are extremely happy to nitpick and shit on, like, well, it didn't make sense and the plan didn't make sense. But the thing is, the vibes are immaculate. Okay. And I am perfectly fine with a story that doesn't make sense, that, like, maybe falls apart a little bit. Because again, it's fucking wrestling if the vibes are good. Okay. And the vibes on this are just really good. And the main point of it is that you have a babyface, Tony Storm, who's clearly thought about her opponent and thought about her nemesis and thought about the ways she could fuck with her and came up with a plan and executed the plan. Now, was the plan the smartest plan in the world? Probably not. Do I think they probably could have executed this a little bit better and thought it out a little bit more? Sure. But at the end of the day, it was an awesome moment. It was a great reveal and it was really fucking cool. So, like, yes, like, that's where some of it sometimes feels like nitpicking. Like, if you're enjoying a thing, does it really matter if, like, it all has to line up? Like, how many movies have we watched where it's like that, you know, books you've read, like murder mysteries and all sorts of other shit? Like, I don't know. I thought it was fun. I thought it was fine. I thought it should have been on Dynamite rather than Collision, but that's a fight for another time.
Oh no, so that would be my kind of thing. So especially, yeah, you can do the reveal on Collision. Okay, yeah. I can live with that. And you've been doing this storyline, you know, with the rookie thing. I think my struggle with that from, you know, a presentation sense is that I think you could have done a lot of this stuff on Dynamite and you could have presented her coming back as a star and it gave them an excuse to put her in, slots that you wouldn't put a returning star in. They wouldn't give to a John Moxley, to a MJF, to an Adam Copeland.
Agreed.
And that continued. I think that they should have had a stronger follow-up on Dynamite, because whether we like it or not, and whether you want to have equal shows, it's still, majority of their audience watch Dynamite, so you need to kind of show that audience, because people don't go back. I think there's this tendency to think, well, everyone will go back, but they don't. They don't. And that does not mean we need 15 minutes of video packages, okay? No. I'm not interested in that, but you want that next big angle should have been, big advertised and then in one of the key slots on Dynamite. And I think they're missing that. So it's one of those things where, in terms of the way they told the story, if you watch everything, I think it'll probably come across really well. If you've only seen bits and pieces, it probably comes across less. And there is a question of whether they've made it important enough. Which is where they fall into that trap, especially with the women outside of Mercedes, where they do these things and then they don't take off, in some astronomical way, because a lot of the time because of where they're positioned. And then it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
And then you never end up with them getting to kind of the heights that you've seen, like women, let's be fair, NXT, where they made their whole kind of show, when it was successful, off pushing women in these high-profile spots and being rewarded by it.
Right.
So
I do think that probably is it's always difficult when you try and say this because and again, so much of this happens over Twitter where conversations are just a nightmare.
Sure.
But when you're criticizing it and saying, I wish I'd done this on Dynamite, and yes, you and I get that they have to do things on Collision to make Collision feel important. But Tony, this was a cool story. This was different than anything. Again, we talked about this with Swerve and Ricochet. This is different than anything else you've got going on. People love Timeless Tony. Why are we not making a bigger deal out of this? Imagine if they had given Tony Storm the time they gave to fucking Jeff Jarrett. Imagine that. I think it would have been a lot better for them and a lot better for the company. But no, they're not going to do, that's the stuff that is just kind of infuriating. So when I say I wish they'd given it more time, it's not a criticism of the story itself or the people involved itself. It's the priority of where we're slotting this stuff. And this deserved to be up higher, right? And listen, if you didn't like it, fine. I get that it's not for everybody. I get that not everybody enjoys the story, and you want to poke holes in it, go ahead and poke holes in it. But sometimes if it's wrestlers that you like and they're doing things that make them look smart or at least not look like a fucking moron, it's fun to watch and it's enjoyable. And it doesn't have to be this doctoral thesis on physics to make sense. No,
and there's a very much a difference between the things you like right now and the things you can't stand watching. What I did think, our friend Aaron wrote on his Grab Pro. Oh, God, I can't speak. He has an article on Timeless Tony's reveal on the Grab Pro website, and it had a really good segment in it, which related back to something that happened in WWE that was kind of highlighted in imagery-wise in what she did. And it said, he wrote, Toni Storm once lost her love for the wrestling business and quit WWE. Prior to quitting, she got a shot at Charlotte Flair's championship, and in a process they wanted to do an angle where they ripped her clothes off to humiliate her. After a process, it was instead decided she'd just get a cream pie thrown in her face. Fucking hell. They knew what they were doing. WWE loves to dehumanize their wrestlers.
Yes.
Now here's Toni Storm, #1 contender tomorrow May, and she's taking her clothes off on TV, not to be humiliated, but to be reborn. If it isn't for the male gaze, but for the purpose of the story. We're not focused on the act itself. We're focused on the performance. And I thought that was just a really nice summary of something that's been played in to that imagery and to that moment that might have gone kind of under the radar. Kind of very beautifully written and very poorly regurgitated by me, but that was our say. So just before we go on to our little discussion topic, the other thing I wrote down is I wanted to say that I like to admit when we're wrong.
Yes.
And it's a couple of things. So actually I had a bet on NXT wouldn't outperform Dynamite in that last quarter of Q4. And I was wrong, mainly because of the live head-to-heads killed it. I think I said that you could just pick a Triple H shirt or something for me to wear somewhere, but I don't know if I'm going somewhere. So someone needs to come up with a forfeit, a reasonable one. I'm not doing anything completely stupid. But yeah, come up with a forfeit. We'll review them. We'll let Sarah pick.
I will pick.
Because that's the first bet I've lost it in a while. The other thing that I was wrong on, and I was kind of summed up by Tunnel Talk last week, was around the Christopher Daniels stuff. And I think that was because, the way I look at it, and I had this discussion with someone actually the other day in relation to this, was, there's been so much with older guys at the top of the card, and Paige's kind of momentum has been so stilted in the last, name me a year, but that it felt like a frustration that he was kind of stepping down. But once you saw what they put into it and what they got out of it, they did an incredible job. And the match structure was fantastic. They put that together just so beautifully, as we spoke about last time. But also the work they've done after. And that kind of really summarises the difference between, Chris Daniels and maybe some of his compatriots who are thinking about the same thing. Where, he goes on Talk is Jericho and he does like a half in kayfabe interview. And even though there's pictures all over Twitter of his family saying, welcome home on your retirement, people are believing that he's saying that he didn't plan for this to be his last match. Even people that really shouldn't. I was amazed by that this week. But no, he's really selling that, and he's doing it in such a way where he was basically saying, he tried to clear it so it's not like Paige is unsafe or anything like that. It's just like, this, I didn't expect this to be my career, but it is. But he just did such a great job in that. And I always wonder, if there wasn't all these other older guys, maybe we would have seen the impact of that a little bit more. But I think the impact of that will depend on what they do with Adam Page going forward.
Such a good transition, Chris.
You're not supposed to give it away.
That was so good. I don't know. We're still such amateurs at podcasting that I'm just like, wow.
People tell us like, I'm still learning. I was like, I'm still studying to be a journalist. Like, give me a break. I don't think I've admitted to that before, actually. Oh, well.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. It's nearly done. I've got 3 months left. Anyway, so what happens next with Paige has changed. And,
yes,
there's a face turn coming. And that story starts now and not in months and months' time. And I can understand the frustrations with, his heel turn and that heel run not reaching where we want it to. That's been one of our main frustrations.
Yep.
But, you're now limited. You knew that when you made the decisions that you made in the fall, and now you need to do something different. So they are going to turn him face. And I think it's very clear from TV that someone he's going to interact with very much in the near future is MJF. Now, we had very, very different reactions to this.
Yes, we did.
And this is a rarity, and kind of inspired by Wade Keller and Todd Martin's kind of excellent debate that somehow ended in flossing and complete silence on heels on the fix last week, which I recommend to everyone. Week before last, I recommend to everyone because that was it was a really good thing. We thought we'd kind of talk about this without having any notes shared with each other. So
we've tried not to discuss the topic with each other at all because we want to wait for this episode.
Because you feel so different to me. So I want you to tell me, what was your initial reaction when you worked out this was coming?
Oh no. Oh no, that was my initial reaction. Oh no, that I was not enthusiastic. I was sort of struck with the inexorable sense of immediate incoming dread, I guess would be the way to describe it. What was your reaction when you heard about this, Trish?
I was like, they need to do this. So my reaction is driven by a number of things. One point is Max doing something with Jeff Jarrett for the rest of the year. Come on, lad, have some pride in yourself. Right? Like, are you seriously going to do this for the rest of the year? It's proper, like, protective, we're on the downside of a cycle.
Yep.
Wrestling behaviour that, where we protect ourselves and we don't work together with other people that might challenge us. That's exactly what it is now. It's like, you need to have, so you do this, right, you need to have some pride in yourself, so good. And actually, my starting point for this is, I can't think of 2 guys that need each other more right now in some ways. So I know you could probably think of, you're probably going to come up with like 10 names that you think would be better to work with Paige right now, but for me, it's like the one thing that Paige needs more than anything is time.
I agree.
Big spots and time. He doesn't get them. It's not a secret. He doesn't get live promos. Has he had a live promo this year, actually? No, he's not. No, he's not. No, that's not a surprise.
Jeff Jarrett's had so many, we can't make the time. So
we no time for Hangman. So he needs a live microphone in his hand, and especially once he becomes a babyface. I don't think there's anyone better in that company at that sell promo, that talk you into the building babyface promo. You know, if you're going to argue the Jon Moxley backstage comments, fine. But in terms of the live microphone, you know, you think of that one that we mentioned earlier in Toronto, you know, that basically sold a ton of tickets the next week for Cincinnati, which they couldn't replicate this year. So it tells you something. Or the one he gave in Miami, you know, before he had the Kenny Omega match at Full Gear. Or, you know, and the one that he gave... God, when he came back this year, it never even made TV. Or the one he gave with the house, which is so difficult to do that all kind of in one take, is just, you know, he's so good at those kind of money promos, and he'll do that so well as a babyface if you give him the time. And the only way he's going to get that time is to work with someone like Mags.
So I think we start from the same place, right? You said it's MJF needs this, like, have some pride, you're working with Jeff Jarrett. My reaction is MJF, you know, Hangman doesn't need this. MJF is working with fucking Jeff Jarrett, right? Like, that to me, like, I just feel like, and again, this is an argument I am saying, these are my deepest, darkest fears. These are not my hopes and dreams, okay? This is another segment in which if Sarah is wrong, she will be thrilled. I will be the happiest girl in the world to come back here and be like, oh my God, Trish was right. Trish was so right. I was an idiot. Thank God, right? I agree with you. Hangman needs mic time. He's not going to get this working with other people. You know, maybe a Copeland, maybe somebody else. But, you know, yeah, okay. Like, I could give you names. You're not going to like them, Trish. I just am concerned that you have to be willing to work with someone to come up with true magic, right? We talk about the spirit of cooperation that exists in your best wrestling feuds. I am concerned that MJF does not have that spirit of cooperation, and that the feud that will come out will be tilted towards MJF in such a way that, you know, it won't make Hangman look MJF's equal, let alone as good as, and it will be a lot of positioning and jockeying and making sure that we're protected, rather than like, hey, here's the actual places we could go with something like this. Here's where I could push myself as a performer and try something completely different. I mean, let me ask you this, right? So based on Dynamite, it does, and based on MJF's tweets, it does seem like the basis for the feud is going to be no matter what you do, they still love you, right? Does that inspire you and fill you with excitement in terms of a subject matter for a feud between these two?
I don't know, and a lot of that's going to depend on what Paige does with things, because he won't respond in the traditional way. So yeah, you have a point. So if you look at the Will Ospreay feud last year,
right,
you know, that went straight into MJF territory with the rah-rah flag stuff that felt really out of place in that election season. And then, you know, we'll have to be like, I really like the flag, but oh my God. Right. And then
that was not set up to make Will Ospreay look good.
No. And then they did, you know, the very overindulgent match, which, you know, it'll vary what you think about that match, but it very much felt like, you know, this is out there just to kind of get the plaudits sort of thing.
Yep.
And
I'm just as good a wrestler as everybody else.
Yeah, and then the promos that were kind of interfering on other people's promo material for bigger programs, which is, you know, that's not a secret anymore. So, yeah, he has these tendencies, but how many times has he been working with someone that, you know, will challenge him on the same level? He isn't going to be able to bully Paige. He's not. I don't see it in the way that, you know, it will make sure that, you know, he gets everything out of it in the way that he did
who's
with Jay White.
Who's producing these segments? Trish, right? So who's producing these segments? Who's making the final call, right? MJF and Hangman have a disagreement about how they want something to go. Who's making the final call? You think it's going Hangman's way? Like, if like, that's the stuff that makes me nervous, right?
Sure.
Are we? Yeah. We're not. The company as a whole would rather make Tony Khan would rather make MJF look good than somebody like Hangman, right? He's got his guy, okay? So that for me is like, that's part of my concern.
Okay.
Right? Is there a support system in place if MJF decides to put his foot down?
Yeah. Okay. But you've got to play to his ego a little bit. Do you think that he enjoys the fact that he's probably winning worst feud of the year again in the Observer Awards next week?
I'm confident.
The only thing that might be that is the Death Riders, as Dave said the other. I can't believe he picked the Death Riders. But
I can't believe he wrote that, actually.
I know. Hilarious.
I am confident that a giant chunk of the reason why MJF has suddenly decided to pivot and do this feud is because he didn't like the fact that he was being mocked for doing a Jeff Jarrett feud in the year 2025, right? Like, I think he even used the words "in the year 2025" in his promo this past week. Okay. So I think the man has his ear to the ground and is aware that,
Okay, right. So, Max, right? Right?
Jesus Christ.
Right? You've got to feed into his ego, okay? So he doesn't want to be in that worst feud. He loves praise. In a similar way to Tony Khan, right? Of course, everyone doesn't. No, but this guy feeds off it. Yes. And he was fed for it for the first however many years of his career.
Everybody was jerking him off constantly.
And
you're the greatest.
And then
his
he's
world
been
title
struggling.
reign. Yes. Went down the shitter. People have been making fun of him. People have been like, my God, why can't he get off the television? Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I mean, again, this is all the shit I said when we talked on Warren's show about MJF, right? The guy is way more fucking talented than what the last year and a half has shown us. Okay? Yep. And the thing getting in the way of his talent is his ego and his inability to truly collaborate with someone and make them look good in the ways that they are good. Not in the ways that MJF is good, right? But in the ways that that person is good. If he had truly worked to Ospreay's strengths, he could have done something probably a lot better and more interesting for Ospreay. If he had truly worked to Garcia's strengths, he might have put that guy over and made him look better than he did. Right? Like, I don't think you can work with Jeff Jarrett's strengths, so we're just going to skip that one right there.
Okay, right. Okay, I get that. But he needs this for him, I think.
Oh, he does?
I think he needs this, right? He needs
more
this for his ego.
Yes.
But the only way that you're going to be able to do that is if you generally put this guy over and you generally work with this guy. And he has not worked with anybody that can challenge him for a very long time now.
No.
Okay? It's probably since Punk. He had the thing with Moxie, but that didn't go well.
They
won't leave that out.
Their tension between Moxley and MJF is not the good tension, right? You talk about like the best wrestling matches are that that's not good conflict. Those guys should never ever have another program with each other ever again.
We'll just ignore the fact that they were scheduled for one and probably aren't now. But hey.
It still shouldn't happen. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't think it should happen now because I think, look, you have to do this. If you are committing to turning Adam Page, then you have to make that turn work. And what's more important to you, if you're MJF, are you going to protect yourself still? Or are you going to make this babyface? And actually, if you want to go into this thing, with your flavour of ice cream and Moxley's flavour of ice cream, you can fuck him over.
Right.
Play your ego.
You could.
You can fuck him over because you guys can be the most interesting bit of this show where we don't have live promos, where we've got things that are repetitive. If MJF comes out of his kind of, trials and his kind of fucking promo structure and he does something different, it will automatically, in this current sense, be the most interesting thing of the show because these guys, and I've always said this, when everyone's asked the question, what's the biggest possible match you can do? And I normally put the disclaimer, not involving Kenny Omega. This is the biggest match you can do, and this is an AEW matchup. These were the two guys that this company was supposed to be built around from the start. And if you're these two guys and you're looking around and you're seeing everything that's happening, you've seen everything that's going through, and then you're seeing Revolution and you're seeing the main event being John Moxley and Adam Copeland 6 years after this company, you should be looking around and you should be fucking embarrassed.
Yeah.
You should be embarrassed that that's what this company's come to. That we're basically playing 2005 TNA, or 2009 TNA maybe. But that's the point. You should know that you need to step up. You can do this, and you can force your own hand. You will get something out of this. If he makes Adam Page's babyface run, that babyface run tanks off and it changes the company around, it increases his value coming up. And his contract's not too long out.
No, it's not.
So does he have, the will and the want to do this? And you mentioned his tweets and he was like that, but actually I think you can play into something which was the one high point for me, and there was only one for me, so sorry guys, of the Will Ospreay MJF stuff, was when he literally said, they loved me before until you turned up. Well, I always loved Hangman more than you. And that insecurity should be the basis of it, because you should have Paige being able to pick that. And I don't want any of the bullshit fucking lines that you use with Jay White, you know, the Google Trends bollocks or anything like that. You don't need to do that. You have interesting characters that have barely interacted in the last 5 years, but have had mirroring paths and challenges thrown in front of you. You know, Paige will do enough on his side. And the idea that, you know, I think, yeah, MJF's strong and he'll do all these bits and things. I don't think he eats Paige up on a promo. I don't see it. Of course, Paige is winning enough. How many times have we been, this guy's going to eat Paige up, this guy's going to eat Paige up, and then, you know, one of the promos is set a guy off for, you know, allegedly.
If he genuinely thought he would have if he genuinely thought he was going to eat Paige up in a promo, they would have done this a few years ago. Like, they would have done it last year when he was world champion. No. You're not wrong, okay? You're not wrong. I'm not trying to say you're wrong. I just am not optimistic about human nature right now. I don't think people are going to do the things that make the most sense. I don't think people are going to go away from their selfish motivation to do something that's for the betterment of them long term. I think it's going to be a selfish short term thing, and it's not like, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's the case. And like, I'm not trying to shit on MJF. Okay, like I said, I think the guy's incredibly talented. I completely understand why he's in the place that he's in right now in terms of protecting himself and all sorts of other shit like that. I get it. Okay, like shit happens to people. People's lives are different. It's fucking hard to be in your 20s, and it's fucking hard to be in your 20s and have this kind of fame and attention and all this other stuff, and to have the level of like the confusion and the difficulty from last year and the babyface turn that didn't work out and suddenly like losing the crowd and not knowing what the fuck to do about it. I have so much empathy for that. Performing is so hard. It's so hard. I'm not trying to shit on the guy for that. I just think when you look at both of these characters and the fact that they are both incredibly insecure in their own ways and yet exhibit it totally differently, right? With MJF having that kind of insecurity that it pushes people away, and again, I'm talking about the characters, and Hangman having that kind of insecurity that makes people care about him, you have the opportunity to do something fantastic. But like, it's MJF. It's going to devolve into some fucking workers' rights shoot comment. It's going to be like shooty backstage bullshit shit, instead of like actually engaging with like their true character motivations and who they are as people and why MJF is like, I just don't like that guy. That'd be cool. Maybe it will happen.
But that's a challenge.
I am not optimistic.
That's a challenge to him. This is up for him to deliver. If this doesn't work, no one's blaming Paige.
No.
You know, Paige is the guy who sat there with Feud of the Year written everywhere. You know, best on promos. I'm sure that should hurt him. You know,
with the least amount of with a percentage, 1% of the time that fucking MJF got last year, and Adam Page lapped him on fucking promos. That should embarrass you.
It should. So this should be a challenge to him. If he doesn't see the challenge and he doesn't want to take the challenge and he just wants to do that, then fine. But that's what we'll see. But this is a huge job. I think this is a bigger opportunity for Max than it is for Paige.
Because I don't disagree with you on that. You can deliver. I don't disagree with you on that.
And you can show off if you want to do your peacock feathers and everything, you can, because this will be big on business. They'll
have great matches in the ring too. Yeah. Both of them will.
Yeah, but also, you know, in business as well, you know, what has been the trigger point of all their big programs in terms of like the first demo that always shows
the ladies.
Yeah, women, and it's 35 to 49 and in 34, these guys cover it. Right?
And they like MJF. The girls like MJF too. Yeah, I don't understand it, but they do.
Well, especially older, you know, the older demo, the 35 to 49. You know, that was the thing that really lifted up the Adam Cole MJF stuff.
Yes. So, yes.
And especially when you've got all the sports competition coming up. You know, we got the what's the college basketball thing called? This is why I don't watch college basketball. March Madness.
March Madness.
Thank you. We've got that coming up.
The college basketball.
I don't fucking know. Anyway.
I deserved it. The darts thing. I'm still not over it. Okay, go ahead.
Throw me darts line. Fuck's sake. That's the most Yorkshire I've sounded in ages. But anyway, no. So, these guys versus kind of an Adam Copeland and John Moxley, they could absolutely, especially if you open with them, with the lead-in and stuff. If he wants to throw all his kind of figures out there and he wants to do the puffy feather thing, this is the thing that's going to get you it. It's not Jeff Jarrett, it's this. But it means that you have to commit to it, and you have to commit to making this term work for Hangman, and that's going to make you more valuable in the future yourself. And actually, you know, if there's someone that could do with learning, you know, in terms of his future kind of profitability, about his marketing, whatever, how to be a great babyface, sincerity and all the things that he was missing last time.
Yep.
Well, here's a guy you can learn from. Go and fucking learn. Improve yourself. Build on yourself. Stop resting on these morals, these kind of laurels that you've been these laurels that you've been resting on for 3 years now, while you're doing the same thing over and over again. The same thing that we're talking about with Adam Copeland. Do something different.
Don't be like these old fucking guys.
No, take the risk and show it. This is AEW. This is our AEW. This is young guys actually grabbing it by the scruff of the neck, not fucking Scooby-Doo over there. It's like, be different. Show, raise this up. Set the bar yourselves. Chase it. And you're not going to agree on everything. You're not. You're going to be strong-minded characters, and Paige is a strong-minded character as well. Good. You need to be challenged, Max. And the fact that you haven't been challenged has been a detriment to this show. And the fact that Adam Page gets barely any time on this show is also a detriment. There is something else to this. Okay? And it's once you turn Page babyface, you can't do the split wins or any of the other bullshit that Max normally does to protect himself. This guy needs to be going over. And he needs to be going over and be going over. What's the Dark Order thing, stop losing, start winning? Yeah? That's what has to happen here. You have beat this guy, and you have beat him, and you've beat him. This is an Alvarez impression now. And you have beat him, and you have beat him. Like, he has the worst record of any upper mid-card anyone that's ever main evented an AEW pay-per-view in the last 2.5 years. Like, you cannot continue to beat this guy, and there can't be a ceiling on him when he does. So actually, if that means forcing Tony's hand, with this Moxley stuff, fine. But you be the one to do that. And, if you think this is different ideologies, well, play into that. Play into the psychology. Play into the different characters. Play into the different types of storytelling. The thing he did with Renee backstage this week was a little bit different. And it was the same when he did the thing with Paige last year. I think he can bring out something in him. And I don't think, Paige at this point, he's always, I don't think there's anything much you can do to him now to bother him. I don't think that's going to be an issue. So it's more just, can you do this? And I believe he can. I still have this belief. It might be false. It might be wrong. And we'll find out soon enough, and we can,
I think he can.
But I think he can.
I'm just doubtful that he will.
Okay.
Right? I would like to have some hope and optimism and happiness in the year of our Lord 2025. But again, I want to be wrong, Trish. I loved that we're fighting. It's my favorite fucking thing in the entire world. A genuine disagreement about wrestling makes me so happy because the stakes are non-existent. And I'm freaking here for this. I want to be wrong. I want to spend an entire hour on an episode in the future being like, I was so wrong about this. I'm maligned. Poor MJF, all the way up and down, yada, yada, yada. But again, I just have my vision is MJF beats him, and we do the classic.
Yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Post match beatdown.
No, you can't do that. If you're going to turn him face, he has to be winning, and he has to be elevated, and you have to send him to the top. But you can be involved in that turn. Look how important that is in their moments, how they're remembered throughout history. If that's what he wants, with Max, he'll want something that's kind of history divided. Do you think he doesn't look at the Swerve Hangman stuff and look at the reception to it and look at all the artwork and everything?
I don't
jealousy.
disagree.
Yeah, what them promos last year before when it wasn't coming? That's exactly what they were.
Especially
here's the whole program.
We talk about shooting yourself in the foot, and this is the part where, yes, Raw on Netflix has given them a shot in the ass, but they are dancing as fast as they fucking can to avoid the downturn that is inevitably coming, okay? Yeah. At some point, people are going to get sick of this WWE shit, and they're going to be tired and looking for something different. Okay, you have the opportunity here to make some inroads during a period where WWE is leaning hard into work, shoot, promo shit. They've expanded the amount of content hours they have. Okay, where have I heard this before? They're going with aging veterans over some of their younger people. Again, Jey Uso won the Rumble. I understand that's kind of a bit of but I just think this is where I get frustrated when you see some of this foot shooting stuff. It's like there's some fucking opportunities here. Yes, they're trying to fuck you. Do some good storytelling and put some young guys on fucking TV.
Oh yeah, but this is it. So if you want to take that opportunity, then you need to put your big guys, your big stars together. Same with the women as well. Yep. There can't be this constant thing of somebody beats somebody on Collision and then they have a match on Dynamite and that's the entirety of the program. And they need to be doing all the things together. These needs to be, the promos, everything like that. And that's not been happening. You know, that's a difference. That's one of the differences, the vast differences between AEW a few years back and now. You know, you would see more of that interaction, more of that psychology. We don't really see that now. We've just got this formula. So we need something to break the formula. Yeah. And you're going to have to put people together that normally, you know, that they may have avoided till now, or, you know, maybe we don't feel like it's a natural mix. But that's the only way you're going to do it. And that's what, to be fair, that is something that WWE did that changed everything around.
Yes.
You have, you know, their main characters interacting with each other on a regular basis. You know, that in-ring promo. I think everyone gets annoyed when they say, oh, you know, they're lapping everyone with in-ring promos, but they are.
Yeah.
I wish that wasn't the case, but they are. And actually, you know, they have some incredible promos in AEW. You need to make the most of them. And yeah, there are risks to this program. There are things that I don't trust Max with, absolutely. There are things that I wouldn't trust Tony with, booking-wise, absolutely, because it's come on, it's Adam Page. But if you get this right, the reward is so much, and it's for them individually and for the company who's looking for a spark. It spent the last year bouncing from program to someone else coming in and saying, oh, this shit sucks, I'm going to change this, or I'm going to change that. Like,
Stop talking about how much the fucking show sucks. Yeah. The last thing I want to do when I watch AEW is hear somebody on AEW say AEW sucks now. Yeah, I know! I see it every week! Do something different with this! Jesus Christ!
So we need more interpersonal stuff. And yeah, we've seen some great stuff recently with Swerve and Ricochet. You know, who had an uphill battle with their with their match in Atlanta. You know, being a week after Raw in Atlanta as well, and you know the card's not as strong as some other cards where people are having signature matches and being supported. But these are your two biggest homemade stars. They are like there's no one else they brought in that currently can fit that role. You know, that's not just in terms of like what they've achieved, but in terms of what they can give you in terms of, you know, numbers and that sort of thing as well. At this point in time, there isn't a bigger match. There isn't a bigger thing you can do that feels like a first time program. You know, they had the brief stuff back in 2019, but there isn't a bigger thing you can do that feels different. It will feel fresh. And I think it's a missed opportunity if you don't go for this. And, you know, I've had promises that this is going to work out. Okay? I hope so. This is why we don't have trust, but, you know, okay. But if you get this right, it's worth so much. And I think that, you know, there is still, as much as last year has been incredibly frustrated with MJF. We know who MJF can be.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he's been through a lot in the last few years as well. And, you know, having the ability to work through some of that with Adam Page, I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
And we know what Adam Page can be. And we know what Adam Page could be to this company. You know, everyone talks about him being a kingmaker. I still think, you know, that's the biggest babyface you can have in this company. Because of the way that he tells stories. And the difference maker that he is in that regard. So, I just think you put them together. And yeah, it's up to Max. You know, it's up to Max to prove himself and to say, I want this. I want what he was able to create with Swerve. I want what he was able to create with Kenny Omega. I want the plaudits that I got when I was working with CM Punk. I want these things because I want to be the best. You know, I want to be paid like the best next time as well. So you have to step up. And, you know, first of all, in a way, he stepped up in a way that he stepped away from Jeff Jarrett. You know, we're going to finish that program off shortly. That's one thing in itself that, you know, maybe that's a sign. I hope that's a positive sign. Maybe I'm an idiot, but I'm hoping that's a positive sign.
Listen, I want you to be correct, okay? I am not arguing with you because I want you to be wrong.
Yeah,
and that's the benefit of a fight like this. But
yeah,
we'll have to see how it goes. Listen, I'm going to be optimistic. I'm not going to, you know, we talk a lot about this and I want to really engage with this. You said this with the Christopher Daniel stuff. We jumped on it. We jumped on that in the first act and we should have waited, right? And I'm going to be patient with this one. I'm going to wait. I'm not going to jump on stuff. I'm going to say, let's see how it goes. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt. But if it doesn't work out, you're going to hear me. You in the United Kingdom will hear me screaming from the United States.
Okay. Yeah, so a couple other little things. So by the time we come back next time, we'll be after the Grand Slam show in Australia.
Yes.
So I know that we have quite a few Australian listeners. Just want to ask if you can send us some feedback in the next couple of weeks. So first of all, I want to know if any of your prices were adapted from moving from the stadium to the arena.
Yep.
what the Australian viewership situation is like. So, I think it's on ESPN in Australia. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong on that. But, is it showing live? Is this something similar to when Dynamite was in the UK, when they said it had to go into TNT first? But I think that's kind of an interesting question. If you're going live, tell us all about the experience. Tell us about, what your expectations were going in, what you thought of the show, what the fan experience was like. Was there anything additional outside? Anyone that you see in the media in the next couple of weeks in Australia? Just anything. If you're based there and you're going to the show, you're even watching this show, or you just see anything, please just send us absolutely everything you can. We said we wouldn't cover it until after the event.
Yeah, we want to do a full deep dive when it's done.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting event to go through for numerous reasons. So yeah, the more kind of we can get back on that would be fantastic. The other thing that's going to happen between now and then will be the New Beginning show in Osaka, featuring LIJ versus the Young Bucks. I will not be on Twitter that day because I'll just be the most annoying fucker ever. So you don't need that. But so you're going to get it instead. They've got a new finishing move, right? This is straight out of the school of MJF, actually. So they've got a new finishing move, and it's called a double clothesline, and which makes it like a tenderito. They're fucking idiots. He's shouting at this little backstage promo, and I'm like, oh no. But that'll be interesting. But that also has the show that's doing really well attendance-wise, moving. And we'll talk a little bit more about New Japan business because we'll know a little bit about departures at that point as well. So that's a good.
Well, I hope when it's over, the Young Bucks come back to AEW television because they have definitely been missed.
Yes.
All my faves are gone. I've been missing Orange Cassidy. There's no Young Bucks. It's not helping my mood, Trish.
Sure. No, I can just, let's go. Hopefully they'll come back. After Osaka, but we're gonna make you watch Osaka as well.
Yes.
We're converting you now ever so slowly. But that show is also the one with the title match for Zack Sabre Jr. and Hiroki Goto. Go to the IJ. I can't even do my fucking pun.
I didn't do that. You did that.
I can't even do the pun. So let's have a little thing on this. Is Goto going to put the G in IWGP and become their heavyweight champion?
I'm saying yes.
You're going yes?
Yes, just based on vibes.
Based on that, okay. I'm going to go yes as well, because there's so much energy towards this that even though when sometimes I doubt it in myself, because I just think, they'll keep Zack for the cup, and, they can do him, and Desperado, and the old kind of, that makes sense, from old Suzuki-gun thing. I think you can easily do Goto and Desperado and then find a way to, if you're going to get the belt off him at Sakura Genesis, you can do that. I'm going to go for Goto. I know our friend Kazo has lots of things he's cut out of me saying I love the Goto.
So many puns.
Yeah, so many puns, so I'm going to get done for that. But no, I'm looking forward to that. I think that's the first show of this year that's since the Japanese kind of New Year that's really kind of caught interest. So we'll see how that one goes. Good line up for that one. So that will be then. Have I missed anything else? I don't think so. Have we missed anything else?
I don't think so.
Cool.
I think we covered everything.
Cool. All right, let's go with that. So this has been the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Now, it's been a bit of a strange one today because we had to do some really serious things at the start, and then we kind of end up like this. So there's no ideal way to do that. We think about these things all the time, and it's difficult. But we hope that you feel informed of the things at the Open, and that we've been able to cover it appropriately, and then also discuss everything else separately. It's just a difficult deal sometimes. Anyway. We are produced by the lovely Leah of Tunnel Talk. You can find Tunnel Talk on all your podcast platforms every Sunday morning. I believe are they joining ONR this week?
Yes. Well, Allie and Anne are joining One Nation Radio to review the Royal Rumble. Leah, in her inestimable wisdom, noped out of that.
We just stole Leah for the week. She was like, I got to produce them. That's more than enough.
Can't. Sorry.
Week.
And Rich and James would never fuck with our show, so they understood, obviously.
Absolutely no. So yeah, you can catch her on Monday evening in general, as well as all the other podcasts on our network at Social Suplex. Find them on the Social Suplex website or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'm saying podcast a lot. It is what it is. You can also join the Discord at Social Suplex, where you can interact with all the podcast hosts, other fans of each wrestling company. I think this week is favourite Pokemon in our Discord as well.
They were quite into it last night, I will say.
They
I
were,
woke up.
there was lots of yeeting.
There was lots of yeeting and lots of yeet-related puns. I believe at one point this podcast was referred to as the Yeet Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast, which I was like, I'm not gonna repeat that, but it was too good. I had to do it.
Yeet Trish.
Yeet Trish. I feel like I'm not hitting the T enough in that. That's the only problem with it. Yeet Trish.
There you go. The Yeet Trish with arm movements.
Yeah.
And Sarah Podcast. But yeah, if you want to join the Discord, come and join the conversation, you are always welcome. You can also contact us at trishandsarahpod@gmail.com, trishandsarahpod@gmail.com, on Twitter, at Trish and Sarah, on Blue Sky. I'm looking at you. Do you know Emmy's getting really mad at you now?
Emmy's getting really mad at me. I deserve to be mocked for this. It's going to be fixed eventually.
Yes. You can find us under our acronyms on Blue Sky. There is a Trish and Sarah pod account. We should get that up and running at some point. Technology is not our friend at best.
We're doing just the best we can here, folks.
It's why we have Leah. Leah has to bail us out on a regular basis.
Many times.
Many times. You can support us by buying some lovely merchandise, lovely clothing. I had great fun wearing my my Trish and Sarah fleece all over Japan, because it was not too cold and not too hot, just absolutely perfect. But you can find them all at www.chopped-tees.com/Trish and Sarah. If you want to catch us even more, if you've not had your fill after these 2 hours and you haven't already caught our appearance on the Warren Hayes Show, you can find the Warren Hayes Show on YouTube, on all podcasting networks, where we discuss more MJF, more Four Pillars, and what changes we've made to the Four Pillars as an entirety. I think that's pretty much it. So we will be back in 2 weeks. We're going to discuss Grand Slam. We're going to discuss New Japan start to the year and New Beginning, and anything else that happens herein and there between. Until then, I've been Trish.
I've been Sarah.
And this has been the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Thank you for listening.